not speaking, and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for adjournment. I will ask staff liaison Andrew Scipione to call roll after each motion. I will repeat the motion for the record before we vote, and will also repeat who made the motion and seconded. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in or watching online. The public has two ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch the live stream on the city's YouTube channel or listen via phone using the WebEx call-in number. There is no community comment during the meeting tonight. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the commission through the commission correspondence web form on our website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to Watch a Meeting link under the I Want To tab on the homepage. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online. We hope there will not be any issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are glitches. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight for your interest in the Transportation Commission and our work in the city. And that's the end of the message. So now I'll call the meeting to order. And if I remember correctly, for virtual meetings, we start with a roll call. Is that right, Andrew?
Yep, just like every meeting. Commissioner Aller?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Kane? Commissioner Katui? Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
Commissioner McCarthy?
Here.
Commissioner Plum-Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Richmond?
Here.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Conti Mahanti? Chair Johnson?
Here. Thank you, Andrew. And are you sharing the agenda, or should you, or would you?
Yes.
Thank you.
The agenda?
Can someone see the agenda and confirm? I am limited in my technology tonight.
I can see it.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Thank you.
I can't see it.
It's
just it's a blank screen for me.
All right, let me try something else. Here.
But if I'm the only one, then it's probably my problem.
I can't either, but I'm not saying. Oh, now I do.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
This time too.
Thank you. All right. Next item is approval of meeting agenda. Is there any discussion of the agenda for tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve as prepared?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then so I'm also retrieving the script and the directions again. I'm so sorry. While I do that, my memory is there's a motion to approve as is, and do we have a roll call now?
Yep. Commissioner Aller?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plumsmith,
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond,
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye.
Agenda is approved.
Motion is approved. Thank you. And next order of business is approval of meeting minutes from our December 16th meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, a motion to approve as prepared.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
It's seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plumsmith,
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond,
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye.
Are approved.
Okay, and I see from the script I read, I'm supposed to repeat who made the motion and seconded, and I need help with that because I didn't catch that, but I'll do better going forward. Can you help with that, Andrew?
Yes. So for if I'm wrong, for approval of the agenda, it was moved by Commissioner Brown and seconded by Commissioner Lewis. No, moved by Lewis, seconded by Brown. For approval of the minutes, I had it moved by Commissioner Plumsmith and seconded by Commissioner Aller.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I'll catch that going forward. And with that, we can move to the reports and recommendations. The first on the agenda is the organized trash collection follow-up.
Yes. How would you like to move forward with this, Kirk? Just review?
Can I ask a quick question? For those of you, how many of you attended that city council meeting and heard the conversation about that? I'd just be curious about that.
I was watching online.
I think, Andy, you were there part of the time too? Yes?
Yeah, I was there more for the reading, more of Andrew's reading of our reports. I had to drop off before the council discussed it.
Okay. To answer your question, Jill, I'm open to ideas, but perhaps a summary of your perception, how what happened at the meeting and how it ended. And then Andrew, I'd like you to add to it also. And then I think the group here would also appreciate knowing that Lori and Jill and Andrew and I met with Scott afterwards to discuss some of the points. And so Andrew and anybody can help with that. So summary to help the group know how it ended up and what's coming up, especially how we might be supporting this going forward. I think that would be best.
Okay. So the meeting was held December 21st, and Andrew presented his staff notes, and then I would have to say briefly put in some points from the Transportation Commission, but largely, I felt we were actually grossly underrepresented. It was clear that council did not know what organized trash was. They went through the meeting thinking it was a one hauler system through organized collection, and I think I'll leave it at that. I don't feel that the work of the commission was represented by Andrew, and we did discuss that in a meeting last week. But in moving forward, I believe Scott Neal is going to communicate with council and the mayor and to see how things can move forward. In addition, the Environmental and Energy Commission is or has written a draft advisory letter to have council go through the motions of completing the state statute protocol. So having said that, if you have not watched it, I would appreciate it if you would, so that you could have future input into honestly how other initiatives should and could be represented to council.
Thanks, Jill.
Any, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going, if I could just add one thing. I think my perception was there was a varying level of understanding across the council. So maybe perhaps one official was informed and pretty well versed, and then, but I do agree that it wasn't across the board. So that your point is well stated that way. I just didn't want to say that nobody was aware. I think
No, that's true. Yes, that is correct.
And I know Lori was there too. And Andrew, I think you'll help us help recap the meeting afterwards. So all of this is interesting. Feel free to cover those points as you like.
So I have my hand up, but I'm not sure how if that gets me called on or if I have to jump in. So
I can't see all of the views, all the people, unless I continually scroll back and forth.
oh
So
yeah.
if we can help as a group, if you see somebody's hand up, just help out. Thank you.
Or should I just jump in? Because I could do that too. If it's okay, I thought I would add my impressions because I was there. That gives Andrew a chance to kind of go last and put in his summary comments and maybe respond a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
So I was there, and it was interesting to both listen and also watch the body language. It seemed very clear to me that Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Staunton had read our report. But it also seemed clear to me that nobody else had. I don't believe the mayor did, based on their questions and the comments. So that is anecdotal only, and I don't know it for a fact. But as Kirk said, or as Jill said, there was a lot of conversation about one hauler, and a lot of questions for us, including the mayor actually sort of berating us for not having had meetings with the haulers and also not having had public meetings, even though that was really outside of the work item. So I think I came away with a couple of takeaways, and we can discuss those now or later, but one of those is first of all, we should always present our own work when it comes to doing a council presentation. And then secondly, we should not assume that they're going to actually read all, because I'm sure they are inundated, with hundreds of pages of information on various things. So I think we shouldn't assume that they're going to read our report on anything. I think we should make sure that we present and highlight what we believe it's important for them to know. So now I'll sit back and give the floor to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Lori.
Thanks, Lori. I was Kirk or Jill, did you want to go through kind of those 4 suggestions that you talked through on the 14th, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
to recap
I
those?
will do that, and that'll be brief. So everybody, we had that meeting with Andrew, Lori, Jill, and Scott, and part of that was 4 items that can be brought forward to consider for improvements. And
can I just clarify that Scott is Scott Neal, the city manager? I'm not sure everybody knows Scott.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. The first one was to for our more complex work items. A suggestion is to have a supplemental information that goes with it. You could think of it like a brief project charter, but whatever it would be called, it would be some structure about how to address things like checkpoints along the way. If it's a report, to make sure that the contents outline is shared between city council and the commissioners working on it, to be sure that we deliver the content that's expected, and other things. So just to stay brief, I'll just say that, like, some supplemental information so that we aren't just going by a couple sentences and a title. And along with that, we know we have some work sessions during the year, but sometimes that timing is not a natural fit for the work unfolding. And so that's the first recommendation. And the second one was there were gaps with the engaged stakeholders. We covered some examples already. There was gaps in the delivered content. That's the second one. The third one, we mentioned that sometimes city council isn't digesting or processing all the information. And then the other gap was that the expectations weren't met from what city council or mayor was expecting with the example Lori already mentioned. So those were the four items. And part of the way to address that was the work charter that I began this with. Outcomes from that meeting were that Scott Neal would talk with the mayor and Kevin Staunton about discussion of next activities from our December meeting by the end of January. And then Andrew will stay informed and let us know how that goes. And that we would have a smaller group here hearing from Scott about progress on what happens next with the city. And finally, we did talk about an advisory communication. Jill mentioned that EC prepared one, and then might be recommended. It was recommended that we prepare one too. So those are four outcomes from the meeting, which I think Andrew will cover more.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that based on the council meeting and subsequent discussions, it's evident that staff and council needs a better understanding of what the legal process is outlined in the state statute. So in addition to Scott getting more feedback from council, staff has started the process of reaching out to attorneys that are experienced in that process of transitioning to organized trash collection, so that we can get so that staff, commissions, and the council can all get on the same page as far as legally what the next steps are that we can take. At this time, we expect that legal review to be completed in about 2 to 4 weeks. And my understanding is the idea is to put together a memo, basically, that we can share with everyone so that we can decide how best to go forward.
Thanks for that, Andrew. I'm glad
Are there any
that
questions?
that process is
Lori,
underway.
sorry.
So when the memo is put together, we'll hear back. Is that what you're saying? Like when we contact it, it'll be brought up in a meeting then?
Yes. Yep. I'll bring it back to the commission in a meeting.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm interested to hear, especially too, from those of you that maybe didn't attend the meeting or weren't as closely involved, just if you have any reactions or suggestions or comments on what we tried to share today.
I did not attend the city council meeting, but I'm going to be sure to watch the video of what happened because I want to make sure I know all the facts for what happened during the meeting because it sounds like a lot what happened during it. So, yeah, I'll be.
It's always educational to see it, to see how those things unfold. So, yeah, I think that will be it will be interesting, Anna.
I think one of the things that is difficult about what happened at council was that we weren't we had a report to deliver, and yes, in the report we recommended some things, but it wasn't a proposal, and so it kind of left the council hanging. I think, I mean that format. So I think that was maybe part of the difficulty, but yes, it was there was a lot of conversation and clearly there's some interest in the topic, and I think maybe that was maybe more of a surprise than I thought it would be. I mean, I think we definitely had some support on the part of the city council. I think the mayor went a strange direction, but based on maybe his lack of having read our report. But yeah, I'd say watch the meeting. And then I drafted just a little bit of an advisory communication. And I'm happy to read it to you to see if that's the direction we want to go, or we simply could wait for the attorneys to come out with their memo before we actually draft an advisory communication. So I'm just putting that out there as a possibility too.
I think that could be a great idea, Lori. I'd still be interested in knowing what your thoughts are on the advisory letter. When I'm reading through what the EEC had proposed, it's pretty extensive and fairly detailed. I'm just concerned about how we, what the timeline would be. Like,
Right.
do we in fact know that the city and staff are working on this, or are they going to sit on it? And I think they might sit on it, in my opinion. So anyway, that's something that can be discussed at a later date.
So I agree. I mean, I read the EEC's advisory communication, and they outline that as they understand the statutes and the process. And actually, if that's the process, it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Because they basically start with, you have meetings with the haulers, then you negotiate the contracts, and then if you can't negotiate the contracts, you go into sort of this investigating other options, which to me is like back asswards. Sorry, I know I'm being recorded, but wouldn't you investigate options first before you begin the negotiation process? Anyway, so instead of actually, I'll just tell you what I wrote because it's pretty simple. It's just a couple of sentences. But I think that the attorneys will look at what the statutory requirements are. I don't really want to go through those, and I think it's really interesting that EEC did. And we've done some advisory communications in the past, and we usually identify the situation. So I just said the situation is the Edina Transportation Commission has completed its 2021 work plan item to determine the impacts of organized trash collection. In light of that work, the ETC has found significant potential benefit and recommended further study in order to obtain other necessary information, including the perspective of the haulers and the public. Therefore, the Commission now recommends the City Council assign this further study according to state statute. And then action requested, the Commission recommends that City Council continue the investigation of organized trash collection by following the statutory requirements set out by the state of Minnesota. I mean, it's pretty simple, but again, it's I mean, Andrew said what, 2 to 4 weeks for the memo from the attorneys. So we could wait on that. It sounds like EEC isn't going to approve their advisory communication until their February 10th meeting. And I also know that Scott Neal was going to talk with the mayor and with Kevin Staunton yet this before the end of this month. And so there's a part of me that thinks we should write this and get this there so that it's, I mean, if Scott hasn't talked to them yet, we've got what, a week and a half before the end of January. My thought is we go ahead and do this, but
this is Bruce. I agree with the idea and the content of what Lori just presented. I think that's right on. I was thinking as since I wasn't there, it wasn't crystal clear to me what the next steps are and what the timeline is. Did that come out, or? But it did sound to me. It sounds like the idea is still alive, right?
Yes, the idea is still alive. After a meeting with Scott Neal, once he talks to Staunton and the mayor, they will give us my understanding was like more of an outlined path forward and they believe they would have that by the end of January. But in the council meeting, it was, again, in my opinion, very unclear as to where it was going. So,
it was also unclear what we were actually, I don't know if it was unclear what we were asking for, but the process of the presentation with then what happens was unclear.
Hmm.
yes, I don't think we'll know more till probably early February and where to go next. And so I think it could be a good move to send in the brief letter and then have it followed up by the EEC letter.
This is Mindy. I was watching the live stream, and it was clear that there was a disconnect between what the process was, right? Of what it was that we were asked to do. The council clearly didn't know what had been defined on our work plan that limited our ability to do more. They were asking exactly what, it was like, yep, if that had been our charge, that's what we would have done. But that wasn't what it was. So there was clearly a disconnect there. And I think we knew there was a disconnect from the beginning, that it was just a report to council, that they weren't being asked to take an action on it. And so that also became very evident in the meeting, that they weren't sure no one was sure what was supposed to happen next, because it wasn't on their agenda as something to act on. But essentially our report was asking them to act on it by moving forward. And so of course we didn't put it on our work plan for this year, because as far as we knew, what we had been asked to do and what was our charge was completed in the last work plan. It's in the parking lot, so I'm sure that if the next steps include more for the commission, that we'll be able to add it to our work plan at that point.
The EEC advisory communication actually spells out that it's time for commissions to hand this work over to either a working group, or following the statutory requirement, that it's not the commissions that should be doing the next step, because we're not the ones that should be meeting with the haulers, neither we nor EEC. So they go through a lot of detail. I didn't think it was, since they do, I didn't think it was necessary that we do. I think we just simply want the ball to keep rolling, and that's what I did with the potential advisory communication. I'm open to something completely different.
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that I like your brief yet complete advisory letter, followed up by the EEC. It's basically saying the same thing, but it's again keeping it fresh, keeping it on their minds. We're not going to let it go, kind of thing. If we wait till the end of February, who knows what's going on.
So will it be on the agenda of a future city council meeting for a decision, or for a decision? I guess I'll stop there.
I'm assuming I think that's why Scott Neal is talking with both the mayor and Kevin Staunton. The mayor's hot button issue was that we hadn't talked to the haulers. And apparently haulers have talked to the mayor, or maybe hauler has talked to the mayor. We're not sure. Probably pretty forcefully, because the mayor was pretty forceful about the fact that we hadn't talked to the haulers. And I think both Councilmember Staunton and Scott Neal agreed that was not our charge, that was not our work plan item.
And
that said,
Lori, I'd like to. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying that we did talk to the haulers. We had communication and we did answer questions. And I think they didn't like that outcome, but it wasn't put in the report. And I did make a statement during the council meeting that we did talk to them. There was emails, there was, Paul was at several of our meetings where I directly answered his questions. I mean, they still had concerns, but it wasn't like we had to completely ignore them. It's just, it wasn't clear in the report that we had done so. And I certainly believed it wasn't at that time appropriate to include it.
Also, Jill, you and Andrew hosted a meeting for one of the haulers who didn't attend. Isn't that true?
Yes, Paul did not show up, but then he later on met with Andrew, I think like an hour or two later. And then Paul also emailed me questions of which were answered in the follow-up commissions meeting when the Vierkant gentleman spoke up.
Okay.
So,
Hey, Lori,
and, and,
could
Go ahead,
go
Bruce.
ahead. Oh, okay. I was just going to ask Lori, I was wondering if you could read that again, because now I have, I think, a little clearer picture of their action or lack of action.
Okay. Well, so I put the situation second, but in an advisory communication, it would go first. Situation, the Edina Transportation Commission has completed its 2021 work plan item. And actually I looked for the work plan item, but it's dropped off of Novus, and without a lot of work, I couldn't pull it back up. But so we should write that in there to determine the impacts of organized trash collection. In light of that work, the ETC has found significant potential benefit and recommended further study in order to obtain other necessary information, including, I should say, and not limited to, the perspective of the haulers and the public. Therefore, the commission now recommends the city council assign this further study according to state statute. And maybe I don't say that in that, because then action requested. The commission recommends the city council continue the investigation of organized trash collection by following the statutory requirements set out by the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, it still sounds good. Can we pin them down? Can we say we'd like to, have a chance to readdress this or something? Is there any way to pin them down to a deadline for a decision?
So one of the things I was going to throw in there is that following that meeting, I had a conversation with Councilmember Jackson about why in the world did this go the way it did, and what should we do next? Now, you remember she was chair of EEC, and EEC wants organized trash collection also. What she told me was that they're under so much pressure and so much public angst about one thing and another, crime and
COVID.
the mask mandate and all of that. She said, of all of the hornet's nests that we could kick, this is the biggest one. They believe that this would be the worst of the hornet's nests to get into. So, and that was that perspective was confirmed by Scott when we met with Scott. So I just want you to know that because it gave me a helpful, broader perspective that there's trepidation about this because it is going to be very contentious. And that's why I think when the staff report came out, not supporting our recommendation, and said because there's not public consensus, I think it's because this is going to be contentious, and it's probably going to require a fair amount of resources to have public meetings and all that kind of stuff. So I'm saying we shouldn't do it because of that. I just think it's a helpful perspective to have.
The interesting thing about it is I was sort of going through my mind, and so who would lead that effort to get public input and hopefully generate public support, maybe working through maybe students or whatever, to try and garner a little momentum there for the public. And if it's just a staff responsibility, I don't know. I don't think it should be us necessarily, but I'm a little worried about it. Where it would go.
We did put the item in the parking lot. It's possible that public meetings that we could re-up it as a work plan item in order to hold public meetings and educate and receive feedback from the public. It's possible, but I feel like we're a little preliminary on that. Like if they just want to kill it, then none of that will be helpful. But if they're open to it, I think we probably could be helpful in the process.
I agree with you. I think if they're willing to keep this alive and willing to take the next step, um, you know, I think it would be good for us, you know, for as a committee to keep being part of that and maybe help lead the charge.
I'm curious, and I need to watch the video, so admittedly I'm not up to speed on this as much as I'd like to be, but two questions came to mind when you mentioned, Lori, about this being a hornet's nest. I still have trouble with this because I know other cities have successfully, literally adjacent to us, implemented this exact program successfully. So is the hornet's nest public opinion? Is the hornet's nest dealing with the haulers and their obvious distaste towards this, or is it both? And if it's both, that's fine. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's the pitfall that is really the issue with this process.
What I understood from Carolyn was that it really was public opinion.
Okay.
That and I mean, she went into some detail about the hateful messages in their email boxes
Okay.
about, you know, sort of drop dead simple things like masks and, you know, so that's my impression, that people are angry and they're looking for places to lash out, and they're lashing out at our elected officials, and that there isn't really a safe topic, and that this is big because people seem to love their own garbage hauler, their own trash hauler, and they don't want to not have that choice. Now, that said, you know, 53% of people think that would, I mean, according to the quality of life survey. We also did address the quality of life survey, and it doesn't sound like there's a real easy fix there. And even if there were a decent fix, I mean, it doesn't come out until 23, so it's not going to help us right now.
I think you're right about that. I think there's some people that they love their trash hauler, and then there's gonna be a certain segment that says, hey, I get to choose my trash hauler.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just regardless of who it is or what it is. It's, you know, now is a very polarizing time to, you know, take away someone's choice. I think the only way for the city to move this forward is to build more pressure on the positive side.
Right.
Because the city council just isn't strong enough to go it alone. I think we'd have to build more momentum and get more people just as passionate and just as angry that we would sacrifice the environment for this other idea.
For this choice of who picks up your
right.
garbage.
Yeah.
Feels like almost like a public information campaign with like very easy snippets of positive information to help educate people, because I'm sure there's great, you know, bullets, easily digestible bullets that could get people, you know, to support this issue. But clearly many, including some of the city council, just aren't educated on this fact, including myself too. And I think it'd be great to, I don't know if that's staff, if that's us, if that's another component of this public outreach, but education.
I feel like I might.
Jill, for Chris's comment about other cities, I know that you've got a great summary looking at what you learned from Richfield and Bloomington. And for Chris and anybody listening, would you be willing to summarize that just briefly? And all this is in the report we prepared, but do you care to comment quick?
No, I'm happy to comment. And so Bloomington, they had a little bit of trouble. You know, their OTC went to court. But as you know, the organized collection was going on while everything was in court, and the people decided to keep it. Richfield was a much easier process, but I think the larger issue is both Bloomington and Richfield, they were starting from scratch. There was no organized anything in either city. Whereas in Edina, 2/3 of our garbage is already in an organized system. I mean, this is not a new idea. Plus 4 out of the 6 haulers are already in other organized systems. This is also not new for the haulers. They know the deal, and the people that have come forward to us anyway, they are part of a group of haulers that don't want organized trash. And Suburban is the only company in the Edina system that is part of that group. And so a very small fraction of the garbage collectors in Edina are making obviously the biggest amount of noise. But in terms of how Bloomington and Richfield did it, it was very prescriptive. It took Richfield, obviously the 6 months of negotiation, but after that, it was implemented in less than a year with one individual working on it. So, and they did not get a lot of backlash. And so I think you're right, Chris, in this, it's like how this is presented. If there could be, and I hate to use the word PR, but there's so many greater positives than there are negatives. And, you know, to get that out to the public in a repetitive message, I think that would be great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do too. I think that would give them the strength or the courage or the energy or whatever it is, because I think this is political, and I think it is the public more than the trash haulers that they're afraid of. So I for one would be in favor of getting this record resurrected to be back on our work list this year.
Right. And there was no vote for compost, food compost, and there was no fight over who was going to do it in terms of, I think, the community. So
Those are great
yeah,
points. I don't know. I would be interested to hear from other people what Bruce just said. I don't know that it needs to be our responsibility and more action on our part for a work plan, but if there's a role that we can play to support it, like I'm all for that. It sounds like we've done our job. We presented lots of facts, and moving forward is something that we're dependent on our city leadership to do. But maybe we could understand more what you're thinking, Bruce, when you said back on our work plan.
Yeah, it is. I just think about the way forward. I see this is winning the hearts and minds of people, not sort of simply polling them, but
Right.
having education out there,
Mhm.
hopefully getting our student commissioners involved, maybe trying to turn the tide of public opinion in favor of this. And I don't know who else would do it, and do it with the passion. Maybe EEC, maybe there's some passionate people on it. And I think Jill, I think you did a great job, and I particularly thought a lot of working with the students. And if it did come back on the work plan, I'd help too. I mean, I think it's a really good idea. And so it's sort of the reason for trying to get back on our work list is, if not us, who, and if it's, might not go anywhere if we don't, unless there's someone volunteering from the EEC. That was my thought.
I understand.
now Bloomington did have individuals from their community create a website, and then they advertised their website on the benefits of OTC, and I think that was a huge benefit in winning the vote for Bloomington to move forward. So the community took over and just decided to promote it. Maybe that is something we can do as well.
I
So
know
question
part of
is
our
that,
recommendation was to include education, wasn't it? Wasn't that one of our bullets in the top of our report? Public,
Yes.
for public education. So
Mhm.
this is highly relevant and be super helpful, because the quality of life survey does a disservice since it's incorrect the way it's phrased and misleading, and the data about it is also flawed, since it presents the idea that people are choosing between current state and one hauler for the whole city. So the whole question is problematic in many ways.
And having students work on it is great. I mean, they're masters at social media. They know who to go to.
yeah. Imagine if they organized by high school or something like that, and
Have
took
Edina
over
High
everyone.
School work on it, and maybe even for credit.
Yes, and have
Huh?
them go home and berate their
Yes.
parents for not getting on board.
Are you thinking with this discussion in conjunction with the advisory communication, are you thinking that including a statement of offering to help or doing something else at this time? Or is this something we want to keep in mind and see how news unfolds at the end of this month and another communication later that's more specific based on news that comes out of discussions. But curious about that.
Personally, I would favor the former, because what I heard is they're afraid of the public, and their way out and our way forward is if we, or maybe some other passionate group, would, help them out of their problem.
Yep.
By listening to the public. So educating and rabble rousing, to get this, get this passed. But we would phrase it as education. Yes. Yes. And public input. Yeah. Because I think they would want that too. Something like that. And actually that's what we stated in our work plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we don't have a public education work plan item anymore, at least not in the current work plan. So so maybe what we can do is agree to do the advisory communication, put in support from the commission paragraph, that if the council chose to move forward to investigate, the commission would be happy to support that work by holding public meetings and working to educate the public, something like that.
I like that. Could we just, instead of holding public meetings, could we say participate in or support?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but that said, it would be my suggestion that at this point, all we do is the advisory communication. Yes, we can add that because I think that's important information for them to have. But short of the attorneys figuring out the statutory requirements and all those kinds of things, I think we're just waiting on the council. And so I kind of don't want to go forward with proposing a work plan item if we don't know if the council's even going to move this ball forward. So I'm thinking maybe we can just agree to do the advisory communication. We'll add that piece of support from the commission in the form of public education and participation in public meetings, something to that effect. And then just wait to hear from Scott and the council. That's my thinking.
Anybody disagree or have support for that strategy?
I would support that strategy. And Bruce, you had asked before, should there be a timeline in that advisory communication? And I think given the context that Lori laid out of the public backlash that the council is currently getting on everything else that they're doing and not doing, that adding a timeline might only add undue stress for the council, and we want to be supportive of the council. So that at this point, I would suggest we do it without a timeline on it, but also making sure that when we have our work session, that's one way we can keep this in front of the council. And if it feels like it's going on too long, we write a second advisory communication asking what happened on it. So we can keep it in our discussions without necessarily putting undue pressure on the council while letting them know we want this to continue.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to approve the specific advisory communication now at this meeting, or can we approve it in concept and then go ahead and send it if it's approved in concept? Maybe that's a question for you, Andrew.
I would say, since the specific language of the advisory communication it's not part of the agenda, and maybe not everyone has had a chance to review it, that if the commission can, I don't think a formal motion is needed, but if the commission agrees to, someone wants to go ahead and draft that advisory communication to put on the agenda for the next meeting, and then it can be approved at the next meeting.
Was our goal, though, to get something communicated now before the end of January?
Yeah.
Was that important? If so, then I would say keep it short, simple, and have it completed at this meeting and be done with it.
Okay, I will, while you guys are carrying on, I will finish it more or less. I'll write that last paragraph, and then we can vote on it. Yeah, I agree. I think waiting a month to approve it in its entirety is that is the slow wheels of government. Like, let's not be that.
Yeah.
I will say another thing the commission could consider, it's kind of an extreme measure, but the commission could consider having a special meeting in between now and February, just for the purpose of discussing and reviewing this advisory communication. It would it would be a virtual meeting under our current guidelines, but
that's a good option to
that's
know.
available.
That's good to know. Let's see how it unfolds. Lori's willing to, she's got 80% or more done.
Yeah.
We can revisit
basically
it during the meeting, and then if we're not happy, we can propose that or something else. But I think we're very close. So let's see how that goes is my recommendation. Does anybody disagree?
No, in fact, I agree. It's we're just trying to keep something moving. And the advisory statement says, basically, let's keep it moving. And we have a quorum here, right? So I bet we could come up with something that we agree on.
Yeah, there are two people I in my head that are missing. Is there anybody else? I think, yeah, we got quorum, right, Andrew?
Yep, we have quorum. The only regular commissioners that are missing are, excuse me, Kane and Katui.
Okay. Then if anybody has other topics you really are burning for you to address before we move on, can you speak up now? Otherwise, let's move on and get through the other agenda quickly. This was important, and I know it took some extra time, but I do appreciate the attention on it.
The only other comments I wanted to make related to, I think Lori, maybe you mentioned this earlier, more for us to consider as we get into the work plan updates, is how can we be more crisp around what we deliver to council based on this experience? Meaning, as I lost it here on another screen. When I look at what our deliverables are to council for 22, we have a policy for consideration, reports council, reports staff, reports council. So that is more of a thing for us as we begin the work on 22. How can we be more definitive, either saying this is a more recommendations or more just share out? Because I feel like this is something that we thought it was one thing, they thought it was the other, and it's because I think maybe we positioned it right in the middle.
So could I offer to supplement that thought, Andy, and for everybody?
Sure.
Remember comments. I have a brief just template with like 6 or 7 considerations for complex work plans, and maybe Andrew can share that screen when we get there. If that sounds good.
That'd be great. Yes,
it's right along. I'm thinking the same way as you. Okay.
One more thing. Even the presentation format. I wonder, for those in there with a thick stack of things to read, including all the correspondence, I wonder if supplemental to our report, maybe we should consider in the future a PowerPoint to go with it, or something that they could skim and get the gist of.
Yeah, that approach, the approach of how we do that could include best presentation media or method. I like that, Bill. I mean, Bruce, that's good consideration. All right, I think we're ready to move on unless anybody objects. So the next topic on the agenda is
Sorry, it's a traffic safety report. I'm just pulling it up.
I'm so slow with my computers today. All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yep. So item 1 is a request to update on-street parking on Southdale Circle next to the ARIA development. The management is requesting to have a signed loading unloading area for movers on the north side of Southdale Circle. The parking garage entrance for ARIA is located along that section on the northeast corner of Southdale Circle. Street's 29.5 feet face to face. There were parking restriction signs up along this area prior to construction. They were removed once construction started, and parking is restricted for the rest of Southdale Circle. Since construction has been completed, parking in this area is used almost every day. As you can see from the picture here, this is the section of Southdale Circle between the driveway entrance and the stop sign at York Avenue. This has caused some issues with people not obeying the overnight parking restrictions and with snow plowing operations. No crashes have been reported in this area. So staff is recommending adding signage to designate a loading and unloading zone in this area. Not hearing any comments or questions on that one.
I agree with staff.
So if there's nothing else, I'll move on to item A2. This is removal of a Metro Transit bus stop on 50th. So in the 50th and France area, for the westbound lane, there are two bus pullouts, concrete bus pullouts between France and Halifax. The westernmost one near D'Amico and Sons, that was removed in December of last year due to low ridership. Both bus stops serve the same route, primarily Route 540, I think, or no, it's 46, Route 46. Sorry, that pullout is about 90 feet long, and the surrounding businesses would like to use it for loading, unloading, curbside pickup, and/or short-term parking. Staff recommends that the bus stop remove, that we sign this area for 10-minute parking to provide space for loading, unloading, curbside pickups, and other pickup drop-offs.
I agree with staff because even when the bus was there, people would still park illegally and just block the street.
Seems like a great reuse idea.
Was there any consideration of ulterior uses like a parklet or pedestrian spaces? I only question because once you add parking, you can never remove it. And so if we add parking here, I just feel like it's now parking. But there's definitely a need, so I'm just offering an ulterior point.
And to maybe to Chris's point, wasn't a space further east there used in that capacity? Was that maybe just during the pandemic or more broadly? Didn't one of the restaurants expand into a parking bay there?
Yeah, at times during the pandemic when that route specifically wasn't running or wasn't running as frequent, some of those bus pullouts were used to expand sidewalk patios. But to answer your question, Chris, the feedback we got from we basically asked the businesses what kind of use would you want to see for the space, and a parklet was not something that they provided to us. It was all various types of parking or unloading use.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
It seems like a good use because it prevents additional parking being added somewhere else if you have quick pickup space there.
Move on.
And next item, A3. This is the no outlet sign on Duncraig and Ayrshire. Recall this was discussed back in November. No outlet sign was present prior to the street being reconstructed in 2008. It was not reinstalled. We're not sure why, but the picture kind of cuts off. But Duncraig to the north here is kind of a long cul-de-sac, and then Glenbrae is just a short little dead end off of Ayrshire. So there's concern about number of vehicles that turn in here and turn around. Traffic on Ayrshire is about 500 vehicles. Only one crash reported in the last 10 years. Different residents spoke at that November meeting about where they would prefer the location to be. The commission at the time recommended further study of the location. After looking at it more and consulting with the resident, staff is recommending our original location of the sign, which is on the southeast corner of Glenbrae and Ayrshire. The next item, A4, is a request for parking restrictions adjacent to 4940 Poppy Lane. This is in Lake Edina. Resident's son utilizes a wheelchair and is served by a wheelchair accessible bus. When vehicles park between their driveway and their neighbor's driveway, the bus can't transport the wheelchair onto the driveway. It's otherwise difficult for the wheelchair to get onto the driveway because of the gutter lip on the apron. The street was reconstructed in 2013. This area between the driveways is about 25 feet. So staff is recommending installing an accessible parking sign in that spot between the two driveways in order to accommodate the needs of the resident. The next item, A5, this one has got a flood of correspondence about. I think it was a record 19 correspondence for this one item. This is for a crosswalk over 60th and Beard. Beard Avenue is stop controlled, 60th is uncontrolled. Sidewalk on Beard Avenue has been constructed over the last 5 years between 58th and 62nd, which you can see on the map here. Sidewalk is proposed for 60th Street in the future. The ADT on 60th ranges between 1,500 and 2,600 vehicles. Based on the amount of pedestrian crosses that were observed, crosswalk with roadside signs is warranted. So staff recommends installing a crosswalk with roadside signs.
Can I weigh in on this? Because this is my neighborhood. I walk Beard all the time. Not only do I recommend the crosswalk, which I think is critically important, but all of the correspondence talked about the speed with which traffic moves on 60th. And it does. It's ludicrously fast. So there's a stop sign, the block right at Chowan, which is 1 block to the west of Beard. The difficulty is that there's a hill. So if cars are eastbound, they stop at that stop sign and then they go up the hill to then cross Beard. Because the crosswalk would be on the east side of the street, because that's where the sidewalk is. If cars are zooming up that hill, which they do, they're not going to see somebody in that crosswalk until they're pretty much right at the intersection. So I'd really recommend the blinking, someone's in the crosswalk signs. Now, I don't know if the traffic warrants that, but because of the lack of visibility for those cars that are zipping up that hill to then cross Beard, if there's somebody short in that crosswalk, they are not going to see it till they're right there. So I'd like something more than just signs that there's a crosswalk there.
Andrew, can you refresh our memories on what the indications are for one of those blinking lights? Because I love them, frankly. There's one in 66 going over to the park.
Yep.
And I think it's great.
Yeah, if you bear with me for a second here, I'll pull up the policy just so that I make sure I am reciting it correctly.
I would add too, while I pulling it up, Andrew, the road seemed, once again, more than wide enough with on-street parking for a curb extension or a median to shorten the crossing distance and perhaps also slow speeds. Was there any consideration of that? And you can answer that after this, but just want to note that.
So our current ped crossing policy has 5 different levels of treatments: A, B, C, D, and E. A is what is warranted right now, which is the marked crosswalk with the roadside signs. That designation is based on the roadway configuration, so how many lanes are on the street, what the ADT is, and what the posted speed limit is, not necessarily what the actual speeds, what the 85th percentile or 50th percentile speeds are. So 60th Street being a two-way street at 30 miles an hour when at the time this request went in, which will be reduced to 20 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour. Based on the ADT, only a treatment A is recommended. In order for it to, based on our current policy, in order for it to warrant the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, it would have to either become a 5-lane road with striped median, or the posted speed limit would have to be higher than 40 miles an hour. Or I should say, or the traffic volume would have to be several times greater than it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe every one of those letters, with the one possibility of the guy that must be the brother of somebody who lives in a different neighborhood. Everybody who lives in the area knows how fast the cars go on 60th. They don't go the posted speed limit, and that is a kids crossing to go to the park. So it has me concerned. I completely agree with having a crosswalk and roadside signs. I'm just concerned, and maybe you could have Nick go out there and take a look at the visibility there. And maybe slow crosswalk. I don't know what signage you can post there, but what I do know is cars are using 60th as a convenience cut through, and they zip through there. And now that 60th is actually pretty smooth, they go ever faster.
We could also, a kind of a step back from the activated flashers would be an advance sign. That's something that we have done before. So in addition to having the signs at the actual crossing, put one, ahead of the crossing so vehicles are made aware of it sooner.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean. It's not flashing. It's
not flashing. It's just a sign, but it's kind of like a you think of like the signs that tell you that there's like a traffic light up ahead, signal ahead lights. It's that. So it's basically the
okay.
I believe it's the same sign as what you'd see in a crossing, but it comes. It's sooner on the roadway. You see it sooner, and it has like an arrow to indicate, basically tell the driver there's a crosswalk up ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. Anything would be better than what's currently there. Any warning that there is a crosswalk there, as vehicles. I mean, the vehicles that are westbound are coming at it flat. It's the vehicles that are coming off the stop, and they're already, they roll through the stop. They're already pissed that they had to sort of slow down, and they zip up that hill. And better enforcement on 60th would also be amazing. But I think we can't rely on that for the safety of the kids.
No, but I would agree with you, Lori. I don't think we rely on it, but I think it would probably help. Can we flag it for additional enforcement?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Flag it to also refer it to the police department, since that was a consistent message in all of that correspondence that traffic is going too fast.
And or speed traps, or something.
Sure. Would someone want to make a recommendation to that effect?
Andrew, could you quick answer? Did city staff look at curb extensions to narrow the crossing at all, or any other
No.
treatments?
We did not.
Would there be any consideration for that, given the closeness to a park and high use of the crossing by children, etc.?
Not at this time, unless we are to receive a petition from the residents.
I think the other
unless,
thing, Chris, is that, again, it would be, the sidewalk is on the east side of the street. And so that would be fine for all the traffic that is coming from the west, or from the east heading west. But for the traffic that is coming heading east, they wouldn't see it till they're up the hill. So I'm not sure that would slow them down.
What's the impetus for there being a stop sign at Chowan versus Beard? Just since Beard is the midpoint between Xerxes and France, and Chowan's not.
It's always been there. I think it would be awesome to stop traffic at Beard instead of Chowan.
Especially
specifically what the I don't recall what the reasoning for the always stop at Chowan is. I believe there's some history about an accident years ago where someone's dog was run over or something like that. I think it was primarily born out of a traffic safety or a resident request like that. But we haven't done any analysis to see whether it's a warranted stop sign or not.
So I recommend the crosswalk, the roadside signs, greater enforcement, or flagging it for enforcement, and also to send it to the Traffic Safety Committee to review whether the stop should in fact be at Beard rather than Chowan.
Do we need a motion for that or something? I would second it if it's a motion.
I would take that as a motion if that's
Yeah.
what you intended, Lori.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, I can take a vote.
I'm supposed to repeat the motion before the vote for that
Oh, good luck.
script. So, Lori, you were saying to do what staff recommends, which is installing a crosswalk with the roadside signs. You were adding enforcement. And was there another thing to add to that, along with studying whether it should be at Chowan?
Well, yeah, to do the roadside signs of the crosswalk prior to the intersection, at least currently. In other words, if the Traffic Safety Committee decides that they just want to move the stop sign up there, then having that crosswalk sign ahead of the intersection may not be necessary. But as it currently is, so the roadside signs and the advanced warning of the crosswalk sign.
And
then,
were you able to capture all that, Andrew?
Yeah, so I have the commission recommends installing the crosswalk with roadside signs as recommended by staff, in addition to considering advanced signage, additional enforcement, and consideration on whether the all-way stop at Chowan should be relocated to Beard.
That sound good, Lori?
yep, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then I know Bruce had a motion, but can we do that again, just now that it's all clarified? Anybody?
No, I think that was Lori. That was her motion, and then I think someone else seconded it already. I think
I seconded it, but yeah.
Okay,
we have to do
so
it
the
again.
motion was
Oh, I
made by Lori and seconded by Chris, and we'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Brown,
I
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond,
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Okay, thank you, everybody. B1 items, B1.
B items, 1B item, request for parking restrictions on the north side of Abbott Place, adjacent to 5417. The resident says they have difficulties exiting the driveway when vehicles are parked opposite. The street was reconstructed last year. It now measures 27 feet face to face when it was 35 feet prior to reconstruction. There's no parking restrictions on Abbott Place. There's been no crashes reported in the last 10 years. The resident has also stated that they feel their issue would be resolved if their driveway driveway apron was widened by a few feet. So staff recommends no action. Inform the resident that they can apply for a permit to widen their driveway apron.
Was the resident suggesting or hoping the city would have paid for and constructed a wider driveway?
I'm not sure. My recollection from when I was a technician is that during these reconstruction projects, it's not uncommon that residents will ask for their driveways to be widened. And in a project like Creek Knoll, where we redid all the curb and gutter, that's something that's fairly easy for us to do because we're already planning to redo everybody's driveway apron.
Yeah.
But as long as that's communicated to us beforehand, and I don't know if this resident had that communication with the project manager. I would suspect not, or maybe they didn't know that that was an option available to them.
Any comments or clarifying questions? Anybody? Do you agree with the staff recommendation? I don't think there's any discussion on this.
Okay. And then any comments on the 6D items?
I did for D4 because I noticed when I travel east at that intersection, which is by Lori's house, so maybe she can comment. I think I should have timed it. It's one of those things where it seemed like it was 4 or 5 minutes, but I don't know. It just seemed like it was unusually long. So I thought it was interesting this popped up, and I wondered how. I know it's not Edina's jurisdiction, but was curious how these initial timings happen and if they're all standard or if it's common to adjust them. And those are things on my mind.
Sure.
Yeah, it was on my list to comment on during member comments. Yeah, it's a very unresponsive signal, and the delays are long.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. I'll follow up with Nick to see if he heard back from the county.
Thank you.
Anything else on D items? That is it for the traffic safety report.
Excellent. Work plan updates. Lori,
Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here.
as you do. Yeah, Lori, the Boulevard tree policy is it done yet?
I'm ready to start. What I would like are maybe 2 other people to work on this with me, because I would like to meet in the next couple of weeks, whether it's virtually or not, to develop our plan. And I certainly have some ideas about that, but I'd like folks that maybe can write and can read policies, read other cities' policies, and think we can cobble something together, something effective together fairly quickly.
I'll join you, Lori.
Is that you, Jill?
Yes.
Awesome.
And I'll help you make a presentation for council as well.
So Lori was hoping for a couple people. Is anybody that's not already leading something interested to work with Lori and Jill?
I just want to say, unfortunately, I can't volunteer to help you in the next 2 weeks due to some family issues that I'm dealing with. But otherwise, I would have, because this is an item I'm very supportive of. But in case you wonder about my silence, that's why I just can't help you at this point.
Totally fine. And really, we can do it with 2 of us. But if anybody else wants to join us at another point, glad to have you. Including you, Mindy.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Andy, comments on number 2, public transit checklist.
Really 2 fronts on that. One is I have some outreach to folks on the planning commission, just to 1, prepare them that this is sort of coming their way, and 2, to have a group of folks to get input on it once it's developed. In terms of where to start and what, where to go with it, I have outreach, and Andrew, maybe you could help me with this offline too. I've done some outreach, need to hear back on it, to Met Council, specifically looking for more direction on what may be happening with transit in the city in 2022, so that we can have a better understanding as we put this checklist together, what to take into consideration based on where we may or may not have service in the future. So I think I've probably mentioned here before, I also serve on the Met Council's Transportation Advisory Board. So I reached out to some contacts there just to see who is somebody who could give me or us some insight into when some service may be restored, if at all, limited, whatever that might look like, simply because I don't want to put forward, for example, if Route 46 service never extends back beyond, the Grandview district, then we should, to some degree, take that whole portion of Vernon off of our planning, checklist or whatever we put together. Same with the various places that some of the other express routes here touch. So I'm going to give a little bit of space on that just to hear back and see if we can get some intel there. If not, I'll proceed with this, with an understanding of like option A, here's what exists and is operating today. Option B, here's if things sort of return to normal, and go from there. So I'll pause there, see if there are any questions, and Andrew, see if I'm offline and pursuing that as an angle just to make sure that we don't put forward something that's irrelevant down the road.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk with you offline too.
Okay, I'll see if my first outreach gets me anywhere. Hopefully it's somebody I see in a different version of meetings like this one, and they'll appreciate the outreach. But if that doesn't work, I may lean on you for that.
Very good.
Great. Yeah, so just kicking this off, obviously, Andrew was also hoping maybe for a meeting with you. I've a basic understanding of the PAX fund, but I think it'll also be important to understand year-over-year costs and expenditures for your typical projects to just understand existing and future buying power of the fund. So I think it'd be helpful to strategize with you, those items, and then perhaps come back to the commission with a better path forward. And also, if there's interest, invite others to support, but not too much to share besides just starting to reflect on opportunities to complete this.
Yeah, again, happy to meet with you offline, talk offline. I will say that both admin staff and engineering are working on pulling together various reports on some suggested changes to the fund. So that is something that at some point I'll go over those with you offline. But I do expect that those will go to the Transportation Commission before they go to council for consideration. So there'll also be that opportunity to weigh in.
Do you know what the timeline is in that? Just so there's not duplicative efforts or synergy.
There's going to be the work that admin is doing. I believe our city management fellow was still waiting from some direction from Scott Neal. My own work is primarily related to the equity criteria, which I'm planning to present to the commission next month for some comments. So maybe between now and then we can meet to get you up to speed on that.
Yep, that sounds good. I'll contact you offline and get something set up.
Great.
And Andrew, did Bokar give you an update with his absence ahead of time so you could cover? I didn't get anything.
No, he didn't email me to say that he was absent.
Okay, I'm going to volunteer to follow up with him and double check his availability to lead these so that we have a either update next time or plan to cover these. Do we just skip these then until next time for now, Andrew? 4 and 5.
Yeah, unless I don't know if he's talked to anybody else about either of these initiatives.
Has anybody heard from Bokar? Okay, I'll volunteer to follow up with him as I offered. And I forgot, why is number 6 without a lead?
So this recall, this initiative and initiative number 2 were split from the same initiative. That the ETC proposed kind of a broader transit related initiative, and council split it up into these 2 initiatives. So I left this blank for now because I wasn't sure if Andy wanted to lead 2 initiatives, or if somebody else wanted to, if he had a preference between these 2, or somebody else wanted to take the lead on them.
I mean, this is work that Chris Bokar and I have done and haven't really put a bow on yet. So I'm fine being the leader on it, though Chris is equally, if not a greater expert on it than I am. But we have done work here. There's more to be done with it in terms of the report out and all of that.
I was gonna echo that. Yeah, I mean, I know, we've kind of started this ball rolling and shared those maps to obviously for other transit lines. So I think there's synergy there, and happy to support this one to continue that process forward.
Thanks, both of you. So Andrew, I think Andy is saying he could lead both.
Yeah, you can put me on it, and
Chris will definitely partner.
Yeah, you can add me. Yep, definitely.
Okay, great. I will update that for future meetings. Thank you.
Andrew, this is a little bit minor, but I like how number 5, it has an abbreviation, but then if you read it, it says traffic impact studies. So that's cool. But, and I know safe routes to schools, SRTS, but not everybody always, oh, that's in there too. PACS, that's the one. Is there, I know this is approved, but is there ability to just put in there? Because if we get new members or students in and out, or any of us like to see what PACS stands for, pedestrian, and I think it's cyclist.
Yes. Yep. I can spell that out in the description.
Thanks.
Not a problem.
Super minor. Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, that's the end.
Yep. One thing I did want to touch on that it's slightly work plan related. The commission had proposed a micromobility education initiative. That basically was to get more information about the trends related to micromobility. Commission or the council took that off of the work plan, basically said because they're fine with commission doing it, it just doesn't need council approval. So what I'm planning to do is come back to the commission probably in March to give a presentation on kind of Edina's history with micromobility, and then take any questions that the commission has. And then I'd also like to bring in a guest speaker from an agency that has more experience with micromobility than we do to offer their experience and answer some questions. So I just wanted to share that with the commission and see if I'm on the right track, or if there's more that the commission is looking for from that event.
That sounds right to me as the person who's been poking that for a while. I'd support that for sure.
I also like it because depending on what kinds of things we learn and think about, it could also inspire work plan suggestions for 2023.
Okay, great. That is how I will proceed.
Thanks, Andrew. Next is chair and member comments.
It is now a time to circle back on the advisory communication before we leave the reports section, because I sent it to you and to you, Kirk.
Yep, I replied. And
you can.
This can be part of your comments, so you can cover that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I can.
Let's do it. You go first, Lori. And I wonder if sharing the screen is a good idea. I liked your content a lot. I replied already. So, Jill, did you have a chance? I think
I didn't see my email.
That's okay.
I'm looking at it now.
And wonderful. There it is. Do you want to?
So, yeah, it pretty much says what I said, although I added that background piece and the support piece. So situation, Transportation Commission has completed its 2021 work plan item to deter. You guys, I hate to read what's already on the screen. Do you need me to?
I don't.
Okay.
But does anybody just need a moment to read it? I mean, why don't we just take a moment, everybody read it. And Lori, look at my email comment while we do that, please.
Okay. So Kirk, I think not and nor go together
All right.
grammatically. Sorry. And any of you,
Neither nor do, but
well, they're both negative. So
Yep.
instead of putting a negative
Okay.
as positive, I
Okay.
think.
All right.
So in that
Content
last,
wise, I think it's really good. And it includes the recommendation about offering to participate in public education. It's very open-ended and good that way.
and I
Does
just
anybody
would
comments?
would support this process by participating in public education regarding OTC. So I didn't necessarily say leading public meeting. I think I just said participating, and that I think we can figure that out if they want to move forward.
I only have one comment, and it would be perhaps removing the along with other limitations, because I feel like it might leave a door open for questioning our process and maybe just holding steady on those items that we already addressed as remaining needs. It's just one thought.
Yeah, the reason I said that is there's probably other stuff we didn't do outside of our purview, and I just don't know what those be, which is why I said that. So
That's fair. Yeah.
but I'm fine. I mean, I think it's fine to take it out. I just,
So
you know,
let me get more radical on that. You know, it sounds a little defensive. Do we need to say we didn't do it because we weren't asked to? Can we just say limited as planned, as assigned? This was limited to investigate the impacts of OTC, yet we feel, you know, more work is needed or something like that.
how about was appropriately limited? Because, you know,
Yeah.
we're the ETC, we're not the communications department, and we're not the city attorney.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I just don't.
Or intentionally limited or something like that.
Or as does this work plan item as designed, you know, led to us. That's not working. The work plan was appropriately limited to investigate impacts of OTC and period. More work needs to be done
Oh, that's good.
to evaluate these aspects, you know, or something, you know, something like that. More work needs to be done, including conducting public education, assessing costs and administration.
And further engagement with haulers.
Yeah, and further engagement with haulers. That's good.
And maybe and other topics, maybe other I don't know.
And not being as familiar with the statutory requirements, are those all things that are in those statutory requirements?
Some of them are. The haulers one is.
And then strike along with other limitations.
Yeah.
You can drop the last sentence. Frankly, they know that.
Yeah.
And maybe these aspects of information are necessary for the city council. For the city council to make a final decision. Or how about just going back to the front of that sentence? This information is necessary. Cut out a few words.
Real good.
And what I like about now the background too, it sort of leaves, it's sort of like, it's sort of hanging, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Right.
like you haven't made a decision yet,
Right.
you know, city council, and we're still looking for that.
I wonder if we want to take the word final out. Because I kind of don't want them to hang on the fact that at some point they're going to make a decision. Or
Just to make a decision.
Or maybe to make a decision or to make a determination. I don't know, something.
Decision is stronger.
Decision is good. It's the word final that.
Yeah, drop it. Drop final.
Mm-hmm.
Could you use the word to move forward to indicate directionality in a, to keep things moving?
Yeah, that works. I was thinking too, now, do we tie it to the action requested? Convince to continue the investigation. Okay, that ties to the background. Can we change the action requested, Lori, to recommends the city council continue the investigation of organized trash collection, including, or consistent with, or something like that.
Sure.
Consistent with the statutory requirements, because then the action really is all these other things that it's actually in the background.
Sorry, Bruce, can you say that one more time?
Instead of by following, consistent with.
Yeah, consistent with statutory requirements, and it sort of minimizes the statutory requirements part of it, and just says, yeah, take care of that. But
That's
then
what
we
we're
get to the meeting.
I think if the statutory requirement is that they put together a working group that then holds, public conversation with the haulers. I mean, it's in the statute. So that's what we're asking them to do.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, now it looks very strong. It's very crystal clear. We're asking continue consistent with everything that we need to do. And then the background says these are the things, that would be necessary. That's good. Hey, Andrew, what happens with this? What happens next? Does the city council get it and they go, yeah, or do they have to respond to us, or what happens next?
What happens next with an advisory communication?
Yes.
So council's not obligated to act on it. It's advisory, so it's up to them to decide what they want to do with it. I mean, procedurally, once the commission approves it, then I'll look for the next council meeting to add it to the agenda. So in this case, we'd be looking at February 1st would be the council meeting where they would receive this, unless the commission wants it to go to a different meeting.
And then in terms of strategy, would that get us, would there be any leverage to get more public comment or support for that, or not?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Last I heard from Scott Neal, he hasn't had much of a chance to follow up with council after that meeting on what they're thinking as far as steps forward. So one thing the commission might want to consider, though, is the timing of their advisory communication with the Energy and Environment Commission's advisory communication. I think, as was mentioned before, they discussed an AC at their last meeting, and I think they may choose to approve that advisory communication on their meeting on February 10th. If that's the case, then their advisory communication would go to council. Probably would miss the 15th, but then it would go the first meeting in March, which I think is March 1st.
It seems like to me, if they got one from us and them at the same time, at the same meeting, that would be stronger. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, I think so. I think it would be stronger if they both came at the same time.
My concern is that before that occurs, they may decide to do nothing. And then we wouldn't have even gotten it in. That's my concern.
Are they going to make any decisions at all between now and the next time we prod them into action? I mean, I don't know how this works really very well, but I don't see them using time at their next agenda to say, you know, we've thought about it and we're not going to do anything. Wouldn't they just let sleeping dogs lie? We don't know. Who knows?
I think we should keep it on their minds and send ours first, and then the next month have it followed up. So it's a continuous, almost like a tag team.
So then if we take that approach, then they see ours, and then they, you know, do what? Say thank you. And so that it sort of hinges on, if they say the first one, we're not doing anything, the second one, then they say, oh, wow, there's a second one we've gotten, maybe we will do something. You know, it seems like kind of dribs and drabs versus mounting a little bit of a campaign to move them. I mean, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it really, but
I kind of leave this in your hands, Jill and Kirk, to maybe suggest our course of action on it. Maybe what we should do is approve the advisory communication first, because that's one thing, and then when is a whole different thing.
So we want the motion to approve it? That's what you're asking right now?
Yeah, I think so.
I move to approve the advisory communication created at the January 20th meeting.
Oh, good. I'll second it.
And I'm looking at content. So Jill made the motion, and who seconded it?
Lori.
Okay. Andrew, can you do a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
signed off. Commissioner McCarthy,
I
Commissioner Plumsmith.
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond,
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye.
Approved.
So now we have the communication. Now we can either talk about it now, or we can sit on it, or when.
So go ahead, Mindy.
I was going to ask, is it worth someone asking the EEC what their thoughts are
I'm gonna
in
text
terms
John.
of time?
Oh.
Because I can see the advantage of both, of getting them one after the other so that it keeps it on their mind, and also I can see why there might be a positive of them coming at the same time, really showing unity in the fact that we wanted to go forward. So I
Agreed.
would suggest getting the opinion of the EEC, and that we're working, since we're intentionally working together on this,
yeah.
and leave the decision of when it is sent to council based on that consultation.
That makes sense.
That makes good sense to me.
I'm okay with that. Do we need a motion for that, Andrew, or can we just have Lori and with Jill be point on that and engage EEC?
If the commission's comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that.
Mindy,
The
could you?
main-
I'm
the
sorry.
main-
Could you say that again? I was typing.
Yeah,
John, and I
I
haven't
was
said
suggesting that rather than us right now saying when it should go to council, that we let you and Lori talk to the Energy and Environment Commission leads and get their thoughts on when we should send ours to council, and let you two just decide what that timing is based on that further input from the EEC.
Okay, so then, so we decide a date. We don't have to go back to the commissioners to say, oh, now it's this date is approved. We don't need another vote, right, Andrew?
We're saying we trust you to make that final decision.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll have a call with John.
Thanks.
And
Perfect.
when it is about to go, either separately or together, if it's, please let us know. There might be a chance to organize some community support for this. You know, I'm thinking particularly through the students too, so that they get not just this, but you know, other people from that they haven't heard from yet. Because remember, I think what they've told us is their problem isn't organized trash collection. Their problem is that they'll get too much pushback from the community. So anyway, so long story short, yeah, just let me know, let us know when it's going.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Lori, thank you. Did you have any other part of your member comments?
No, I think I'll just mute. I'm good.
Okay.
Did you get my text, Kirk?
What?
Did you get my text?
No, I'm not looking at any texts. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I have zero text access right now. I'm using my phone for this meeting. Sorry.
okay.
If I need to see something, I can look at email.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to make this easy. So I'm just going to call out name according to who I see on the screen, and I'll move it around. So Mindy, can I put you in the spot first? Do you have a member comment?
Yep. The only comment that I would make is that I work with the Project Earth students, the environmental club at Edina High School, and they are planning a climate summit in April. I think it's April 16th is the date. And they're still planning what the agenda will be for that. So one question, Jill, is the students from Hopkins that worked on this with you, did they graduate or are they still students? And maybe they would want to propose something to the Project Earth students that are planning the climate summit, that being one avenue of advocating for organized trash collection coming from a student perspective. So if the students that helped you in writing the report.
Vantage students from Minnetonka.
Oh, Minnetonka, sorry.
They graduated too.
But I would like to put a plug in for our own student members here in this group as a good audience, as alternative, Mindy, for consideration.
Yeah, yeah. What I would suggest, it'd be great if there were a student that would come to Project Earth and say, hey, we would like to include this topic at your climate summit. And probably they'll have tables or something. They're still working on the final, on the details. They've been talking about different presentations from students that are within the club on different topics. So this generally fits within their format of it being another topic. How long it would be, who would present it, whether it's just a table, those things are still up in the air and they're planning. But there's plenty of time before that, so I'm just putting it out there as something for us to keep considering. Of I have that connection with the students at Edina High School.
Thanks, Mindy. Next, I see Bruce's name that's conveniently in front of me. Bruce, do you have a member comment?
My only comment is to say that I like Mindy's comment.
All right, very good.
Particularly with like a call to action, if they have tables or something like that, to have the website or the text or whatever address that some student could go, yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, go ahead and send a message.
Hey, Chris, do you have a member comment or two?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Jill. Jill, do you have any comments from member perspective?
I do. Andrew, can you send me the edited version of the advisory letter?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And then I just want to say, I think in finality, we wish you a fantastic up and coming weekend as it's your wedding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, wishing you well and the best, and it's exciting times.
Thank you.
Yes. And then Lori already went, and Andy had to drop off. Did I catch everybody? My comment was I was going to bring up the 6 or 7 ideas that Andy mentioned that were for work plan, but in the interest of time, I am just going to send those, clean them up, send them to Andrew, and ask that he just share that as FYI to the group. And we don't need to take action right now, but I'll just communicate across the group that way through Andrew. I don't have any other comments.
And Kirk, did you see Andy's comment that was in the chat?
Oh, no.
I wasn't sure if you
So
could.
limited today. Sorry, can you help? What was the chat
Yes,
comment?
he needed to drop off, but he asked that we read his comment for the record from Andy Lewis. That said, I would like to put in a request to city staff to accelerate their snow clearance of city maintained sidewalks to be on par with city street snow removal. In the most recent snow event, city sidewalks on Concord Avenue and Valley View Road were both uncleared for more than 24 hours after snowfall, making them impassable for those rolling or otherwise unable to navigate deep snow.
Andrew, is that something easy to capture since it was in the chat?
I copied it and I'm going to send it along to Public Works.
Thank you.
Andrew, is 58th city maintained?
Yes.
Well, same thing there then.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. That concludes chair and member comments. Next is staff comments.
Let's see, I've got a couple. So the 2022 roadway reconstruction projects were approved by council in December. That includes Blake Road with the 8-foot shared use path between Waterman and Hopkins, and the 5-foot on-street bike lanes. The other project that was approved was a Morningside D&E, including the bike boulevard on Grimes Avenue. So those projects are proceeding forward with design. Wanted to make note that elections for chair and vice chair will be held at next month's meeting. As a reminder of the process, the nominations must be made by a motion, seconded, and then voted on. The commission can elect chair first or vice chair first. Either one doesn't really matter. The next meeting's agenda will also include the 2021 traffic safety summary report presented by Traffic Safety Coordinator Nick Baller and the 2021 PAX Fund summary report. Nick and I will be looking for feedback from the commissions on these reports before we present them to City Council in March. I will be out tomorrow and Monday as I'm getting married on Saturday, which I'm very excited for. I've got still some last minute preparations to do, but getting excited. And then last thing is that our next regular meeting is Thursday, February 17th at 6 o'clock on WebEx. That's it.
Excellent. The last item is easy. That's adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, that was a motion made by Lori and seconded by Mindy. Andrew, roll call, and then we're done.
Commissioner Aller?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy?
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond?
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Johnson?
Aye.
Stand adjourned.
Excellent. We did it before 8. Thank you, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew, have a great and wonderful celebration.